Emily froze mid-sip, staring at a perfume ad, until her gaze locked on a crescent-shaped birthmark on the model's shoulder. Her coffee slipped from her hands. That mark belonged to her daughter, the one who vanished 18 years ago. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The morning sunlight filtered through the pine trees as Emily Parker buckled her daughter into the car seat, completely unaware that the life she knew was minutes from shattering. Lily giggled, her tiny fingers chasing a dust mote dancing in the air. "Butterfly!" she squealed. Emily smiled, brushing a chestnut curl from her daughter's forehead. "Yes, sweetheart. Just like the one on your clip." She gently adjusted the plastic butterfly barrette in Lily's hair, the one the toddler insisted on wearing every day since she'd found it in a cereal box. At Little Bud's Daycare, the scent of fresh crayon wax and apples filled the air as kids played and caregivers greeted parents with routine smiles. Emily crouched to kiss Lily goodbye, whispering, "Be good today, my little bug." Lily nodded solemnly, then burst into a giggle and ran toward the puzzle mat. Emily lingered for a second longer, soaking in the way her daughter's ponytail bounced with every step. Then she walked out the door. The call came just past noon. Emily had just finished refilling coffee at table 6 when her phone buzzed in her apron. The daycare director's voice was shaking, threaded with dread. "Emily, Lily's gone. She was here, and then she wasn't. We've looked everywhere." Everything went still. The diner noise vanished beneath the rush of her pulse. Plates clattered as she sprinted out the back door. By the time she reached the daycare, police cruisers and concerned onlookers had already gathered. Officers moved through the building with grim faces, clipboards and radios in hand, but their expressions told Emily everything. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. Lily was gone. There were no signs of a struggle. No broken windows, no footage from the old security system, which had stopped working the week before. Staff said Lily was playing alone by the reading corner one moment, then missing the next. No one saw anything. No one heard a thing. In the weeks that followed, Emily transformed from devastated mother to relentless force. She stood outside grocery stores, handing out flyers until her fingers were numb. She screamed Lily's name across empty fields at night, half hoping for an echo. She didn't sleep, only traced her daughter's face in photos by candlelight. Mark unraveled. The guilt consumed him, gnawed away at his sanity until alcohol dulled the edges. He couldn't look at Emily without drowning in shame. Fights replaced comfort. Blame replaced touch. Their marriage dissolved like paper in the rain. But Emily, she endured. She survived every passing birthday without a cake, every holiday with one stocking missing. In her closet, tucked behind her coats, sat a box. Inside, Lily's baby blanket, her favorite onesie, the butterfly clip, and a Polaroid with that crescent moon birthmark in plain view. She opened it often, not to mourn, but to remember, to never forget. The morning was ordinary in every external sense, gray clouds pressing low over Ashcroft, a light frost curling at the edges of Emily Parker's windows. Inside her modest apartment, the silence was companionable, broken only by the hum of the radiator and the soft clink of her spoon against a chipped ceramic mug. She sat alone at the kitchen table, flipping listlessly through a fashion magazine she'd pulled from the shared laundry room downstairs. It was something to fill the time, something that didn't hurt. She turned the page, and time stopped. Her eyes froze on the full-page perfume ad, a young woman draped in golden light, arms folded in a soft pose, chin tilted with subtle confidence. But it wasn't the elegance or the product that caught Emily's breath. It was the face. The curve of the jaw, the wide-set blue eyes, the dimple that showed faintly at the left corner of her mouth. a face that had never aged in Emily's memory. Her heart stuttered. Her hands began to tremble. She pulled the magazine closer, almost afraid to confirm the impossible. There it was, on the exposed shoulder of the model, half-shadowed, just below the collarbone, a small, unmistakable mark, a birthmark, crescent moon-shaped, exactly where Lily's had been. Emily's vision blurred with sudden tears. Her chest heaved. She reached out and touched the image with shaking fingers, whispering a name she hadn't spoken aloud in years. Lily. Shock gave way to movement, urgency. She turned the page back and forth, desperate for information. Beneath the ad copy, she found a tiny line of credits: photographer, agency, and a New York phone number. Grabbing the cordless phone from the wall, she dialed with her free hand, every joint aching from tension. A woman answered. Emily's voice didn't betray her panic. "Hi, yes, I saw your latest ad, and I'm a huge fan of the model. I was wondering if you had more photos of her? Or her name, maybe?" There was a pause, a polite chuckle. "That's Chloe Blake. We represent her exclusively. She's got quite the future, that one." Emily hung up with a name echoing through her mind like a tolling bell. Chloe Blake. She didn't sleep that night. She sat on her couch, clutching the magazine to her chest, staring at the birthmark through a blur of tears. And by morning, she'd made up her mind. She hired a private investigator that week. Because Emily Parker didn't believe in coincidences, not when it came to her daughter. The investigator returned with a file thick as a brick and a face that said more than words could. Emily sat at her kitchen table, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. Every breath felt borrowed. He slid the manila envelope toward her like it held a live fuse. "Her name is Chloe Blake," he said. "Legally adopted at 3 years old by Daniel and Sharon Blake. Affluent, well-connected. They run a nonprofit that bounces across the East Coast. Disaster relief, fundraising galas, the whole package. But here's the thing. Chloe has no documented history before the age of 3. Nothing. No baby photos, no early medical records except the ones filed after the adoption." Emily stared at the paper-clipped documents, her vision swimming. Her heart picked up speed as she reached for the first sheet. A birth certificate registered in Vermont. The name, the date. It didn't match Lily's. But the hospital listed was near the town the Blakes had moved to shortly after Lily's disappearance. "Forgery," the investigator said quietly. "Professional, but not flawless. We cross-referenced the attending physician on that document. He died 3 months before the certificate was supposedly signed." Emily didn't speak. She couldn't. Her mouth had gone dry. The next sheet trembled in her fingers. A name leapt off the page like a brand searing through memory. Sharon Blake. She was Sharon McIntyre then, a registered nurse in Ashcroft, worked part-time at Little Bud's Daycare, until the very day your daughter vanished. The world went silent. Not the kind of silence filled with peace, but the kind that presses against your eardrums like a rising scream. Emily gripped the edge of the table, her body rigid. It hadn't been a fluke. It hadn't been fate or chance. It was a theft, a betrayal buried beneath years of privilege and deceit. Sharon had known Lily, had likely held her, had watched Emily walk in every morning, tired but smiling, trusting. And then she'd taken her. Emily's chest burned, her throat clenched as fury surged through her in white-hot waves. She brought the entire file to the local police precinct the next morning. An officer read through the documents, eyes narrowing. He didn't dismiss her. He didn't even blink when she said the word kidnapping. They reopened the case. But justice would not be so simple, because Chloe, Lily, was now 20 years old. Raised in wealth, surrounded by love as she knew it, she had no memory of Emily. No memory of the butterfly clip or the lullabies or the crescent moon birthmark that once made her giggle. To her, Emily Parker was not mother. She was a stranger with a heartbreaking claim. And truth, no matter how clear, doesn't always feel like truth to the one who's lived a different lie. The air outside the courthouse was sharp with winter, the sky a flat steel gray. Emily stood near the stone steps, hands trembling inside her coat pockets, her breath clouding in the cold. The crowd had begun to thin, reporters with notepads and cameras peeling away now that the legal spectacle was over. But Emily stayed rooted in place, staring at the door as if her whole life hinged on who would walk through it next. And then, the door opened. Chloe stepped out. She wore a long black coat, her dark blonde hair tucked behind her ears. Her walk was careful, deliberate, less like someone meeting a mother, more like someone approaching the edge of something vast and unknown. Her eyes scanned the small crowd until they landed on Emily, and then everything slowed. She hesitated, her shoulders stiff, her expression unreadable. They faced each other, separated by just a few steps and a chasm of stolen years. Emily's voice came out cracked but steady. "I've missed you every single day." Chloe didn't speak right away. Her lips parted, and for a moment, her face betrayed the storm beneath. Confusion, grief, maybe even guilt. Finally, her voice broke through the silence. "I don't remember you." A breath, a tremble. "But I want to." Emily's knees nearly buckled, but she held herself together long enough to open her arms. Chloe stepped forward, uncertain at first. Then, all at once, their embrace was not perfect. It was raw. It was hesitant and searching, but it was real. 18 years of absence melted into that one fragile contact. Later, when they sat together in Emily's apartment, Chloe ran her fingers over the edge of a baby photo. "That's really me?" she asked, studying the familiar crescent mark. Emily nodded silently. There were no grand declarations, no miraculous recoveries of memory. Just conversation. Unsteady, emotional, often interrupted by silence. Chloe came by once a week. Sometimes she brought photos of her childhood, laying them beside the ones Emily had saved for decades. Two lives lived in parallel, now slowly beginning to touch. Emily never asked her to choose between past and present. She never asked her to renounce the Blakes or pretend away the life she'd lived. She only asked for one thing, a chance. And Chloe, though conflicted, though still healing, gave it. The road was uneven. There were moments of joy, others of aching discomfort. But beneath it all was something neither woman had expected to find so soon. Hope. For the first time in nearly 20 years, Emily's heart didn't ache every time she opened the box of baby memories. Because now, when she looked into her daughter's eyes, she didn't just see the past. She saw a future.